As an illustrator, you may not want to mess with lettering, but lettering can still mess with you. Hello everyone! Welcome to our Business with Ness. I'm Ness and I'm a professional illustrator. Today we're talking about lettering, and lettering is an afterthought for many of us, and I completely understand. I was the same way too just a year ago. After all, we're interested in drawing, not letters. But still, lettering in text is present in many illustrations, whether it's picture books, editorial illustrations, greeting cards, book covers, etc. If you're lucky, when you work with a company, they may have a graphic designer on the team to do that for you. But that's not always the case when you work for a small client like an author. And if you do work for your portfolio, such as personal work, then you'll have to figure it out on your own. In those cases, just slapping a bad font on your gorgeous art can completely ruin it and drag down the overall quality, making it look very amateurish. So today, let's talk about the 10 biggest lettering mistakes that you might be making and how to fix them. But first, let me thank our brand new sponsor, Invoice Ninja, for helping fund this video. We very rarely have sponsors on this channel because I always insist that they must be excellent and also relevant to what we talk about here on this channel. And so Invoice Ninja is actually both. This cloud-based invoicing app focuses on meeting the needs of freelancers and small businesses like us and helps us get paid, track how much money we're making month to month, and remind us about who hasn't paid their invoices yet. More about Invoice Ninja at the end of this video. Now, let's jump into the lettering mistake. Mistake number 1, not planning for the text. When there is text, it's quite a big part of the illustration and it must be planned from the beginning with all the other drawing elements. It is so much harder to integrate the text well when it's just an afterthought and we must figure out how to make it fit at the very end at the last minute. It often creates problems like, oh no, there's not enough space on the illustration for the text. Or it's very difficult to find a color that matches the established color scheme. Sometimes the text will end up overlapping drawn elements or clashing with them, which makes it a lot harder to read. So instead, treat the text like it's part of your illustration and plan for it at the very beginning at the thumbnail stage. Trust me, it will save you so many headaches. Mistake number 2, bad fonts. We illustrators can sometimes be a little bit lazy with the text, let's be honest. I've certainly been guilty of that in the past, just last minute, slap a font on my illustration and call it a day. Doing that is bad enough, but it's made even worse when the font itself is a very bad match for the art. One of the most important parts when it comes to text, it has to be easy to read. And so a complicated, fancy font with a bunch of decorative elements can actually be quite hard to read. And if you have the same letter repeating a few different times in your word or in your phrase, we will see very easily the repetition of those complex decorative elements. Very quickly, it will look very bad. If you must use a font, it's much better to pick something that's simple and clear, or use a couple different simple fonts to break it up a bit, create a bit of variety. Mistake number 3, letters that are all the same. A big problem with fonts is that you only have one of each letter within your font. If you have a word or phrase that uses several of the same letter, very quickly it will be super repetitive. The eye can really spot it. You'll be like, oh, this S, this S, this S, they're all the same S. It's super obvious that it's a font and it doesn't look good. But fonts aren't your only option. Hand lettering is a very popular way to do text, and you can most easily match it to your illustration because it is custom made. It tends to look a lot better than a font, and you can make each letter just a little bit different to switch it up. If you do hand lettering though, there are some rules to making it look good, and that brings us to our next point. Mistake number 4, writing normally. Hand lettering is not the same as just writing something in your usual handwriting. That's why it's deceptively hard to do. Writing is a habit that uses muscle memory to create the symbols. And at this point, you watching this video, you probably have at the minimum a decade or 3 of muscle memory when it comes to writing. So it comes automatically without having to think about it. But for hand lettering, you must use a completely different part of your brain because you must draw the letters, not write them. You must focus on the shape and craft it carefully, stroke by stroke, just like you would any drawing. It can be very difficult to break the habit and force yourself to draw the letter as if it's any other shape and not the symbol. But once you've done that switch in your brain, you realize that you have to draw the letter, not write it. Lettering will come a lot easier to you. Mistake number 5, bad composition. The text itself has a composition too, and to look harmonious, it must be well balanced. This starts with organizing your phrase and giving more priority to the most important words. That's what we call hierarchy. For instance, let's take the phrase hierarchy is amazing. If we place them in order of the most important word to the least important, it would be first, most important, hierarchy. Second, amazing. And third, is, which is kind of a filler word and not really important at all. You can plan your composition using blocks and make sure there aren't any big holes anywhere. The capital letters often take the most space, so you can use swishes or decorations on the other side to balance the composition. It's just like any illustrations. All the same principles that you usually use apply here too. Mistake number 6, not following your guidelines. And here I don't mean guidelines as in rules, I mean guides. There are 5 major lines that can help guide your hand while you draw your letters. The main one, where your letters rest, is called the baseline. The hex height guide is the height of your lowercase letters. The cap height guide is the height of your uppercase letters. And lastly, we have the ascender line that guides the height of the long part of letters like T or L, and the descender line that guides the long part of letters like G or Q. We don't always have to follow these guides to the letter, haha. It's okay to bend the rules once in a while when it benefits the image, but if we just completely ignore all the guides and draw the letters willy-nilly, it will kind of look like a mess. So it's good to be aware of the lines, draw them as a guide on your paper, and just remember to follow it as closely as possible when you draw your letters. We have 4 more mistakes to cover, but before we continue, I really want to know, do you like lettering? What do you think about it? Do you find it fun? Does it make you feel a bit uncomfortable? Is it something that you would like to learn more about and learn to improve those skills a little bit more, or do you have no interest at all? No matter what it is, let me know in the comments down below. I'm interested to hear what you have to say. Until recently, I really hated lettering myself, but after I took some classes, learned more about it, as I find with most things, after I learn what I'm actually doing, I enjoy it a lot more. After today's video, I hope by knowing a little bit more about the basics, principles of lettering, that you will enjoy it a little bit more too. So moving on to mistake number 7, mixing styles. Lettering is not all the same. There are multiple different styles. The main ones are serif, sans serif, and script lettering. Serifs are the little bits that decorate the tops and bottoms of your letters. There are many different ways to draw them, like bracketed serifs, hairline, slab, or Tuscan serifs. Of course, the serif style of lettering is when you use serifs on your letters. And when you don't use them, that's when we call it sans serif. But sans serif style doesn't have to be boring at all. This type of lettering encompasses anything from groovy retro letters to bubble lettering. And lastly, there's script lettering, which is inspired by calligraphy. So this is usually cursive letters, so attached, it's very elegant. There will be flourishes and swishes. Now you can use different styles for different parts of your phrase, right? Different words have different fonts, so to speak. But if you use different styles within the same word, that is really a no-go. That's really not going to look good at all. When we don't know much about lettering, it can be an easy mistake to make to add some serif to an I in the word and no serifs on the other letters, for instance. But easy mistake to make or no, this really looks amateur, and people who do spot it will be like, eek, what has that person done? So it's really a no-no. Keep that in mind. Mistake number 8. No thickness variety. When we write normally with a pencil, there's no variation in the thickness of our strokes. They're all the same. But in lettering, many of the styles do have varying thicknesses in the strokes. It's not in all of the styles, but it can add a lot of interest when you do incorporate it. It's mostly prevalent in script lettering, where the main rule is when you do an upstroke, you let out your pencil a little bit, so it's a thin upstroke. And when you go a downstroke, you press more, so it's a thicker stroke. And that feels very natural, light up, more pressure on the way down. It feels very normal when you write like this, so I can definitely see where it came from originally. And it's not just in script lettering. You can use the same technique with serif lettering or sans serif lettering too. And it can be a little bit confusing at first because it's not immediately apparent on all the letters which strokes are up and which strokes are down. So you may have to look up how each letter is constructed. There are lots of resources online if you Google it. Once you get a hang of it, it can really add a lot of pizzazz and just a little bit extra polish to your letter. Mistake number 9, lack of consistency. With all of the rules that we discussed, there are many different styles, many different ways of doing everything. But once you have picked a method, it's important to stay consistent within the same word or within the same phrase. And again, different words can use different styles. That's okay. But within the same style, you really have to stay with the rules that you have established. So let's say you decided in this word, I'm going to use hairline serifs. Then you need to use hairline serifs with the entire word. You can't just change and in the middle, mix it up and add a Tuscan serif to one of your letters but not the others. That's a no-no. Changing midway through is just going to make it look messy, hard to read, and just kind of odd. A good way to stay consistent is to decide which stylistic features you're going to use in advance and write them down so that you can reference them later. Or if you're going to use the style very often, you can even create a whole alphabet for yourself to use as a reference sheet. And finally, mistake number 10, it's too plain. Once you have the base of your letters, don't just leave it at that. There are so many ways that you can color and embellish and decorate your letters to really give them a little bit more oomph and magic and take them to the next level to make them feel beautiful and polished. There are many kinds of treatments that you can apply to your letters, too many to name here. So in my next video, I will show you my 10 favorite embellishments to make your letters pop. So these were the top 10 lettering mistakes to avoid. Good lettering can really help you level up your illustrations and appear more professional. Another thing that can help you look a lot more professional is using a service like Invoice Ninja in your art business. With their beautiful templates, you can create and send a super professional invoice or quote to your clients in seconds. Not only does it help you look like you know what you're doing, it saves you time dealing with paperwork and admin stuff, so you can focus on the art. Invoice Ninja also creates a super smooth experience for your clients by allowing them to pay directly from their invoice in one click with a credit card, PayPal, Apple Pay, or more. Get notifications when clients view your invoices and automate payment reminders so you don't have to worry about a thing. But for me, what really takes Invoice Ninja to the next level is their productivity tools to help you log tasks, track your time, organize your projects on boards, as well as their mobile app that's super user-friendly and smooth as butter. They're also much more affordable than other invoicing apps, which is really important for us freelancers, especially when we're just starting out. So check out Invoice Ninja and see how it can help you run your art business more smoothly. I will leave the link to that in the description below. But that's it for me today. Thank you so much for stopping by. I hope that you enjoyed the video, and if you did, then don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to help our small channel grow. Don't forget, I will see you in my next video with my 10 favorite treatments that you can use to embellish your letters. So if you don't want to miss that, make sure to subscribe and you'll get a notification when that's out. Until then, thank you for being here. I appreciate you, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.